The Blackwood estate had always been a stain on the quaint New England village of Havenwood. Its darkened windows stared out like vacant eyes, and the overgrown grounds whispered tales of madness and despair. When Arthur Reeves inherited it from a distant relative had never met, Havenwood collectively held its breath, waiting for the inevitable descent into darkness. Arthur, a struggling historian, saw only an opportunity. The estate, despite its reputation, held the promise of untold stories buried within its walls. Stories he desperately needed to write to save his dwindling career. He arrived on a blustery October afternoon, the wind howling through the skeletal branches of ancient oaks. The house loomed before him, a gothic behemoth of decaying brick and peeling paint. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and something else, something akin to decay. He found the front door unlocked, as if daring him to enter. The interior was shrouded in shadows, thick with dust, and the silence was deafening, broken only by the creaks and groans of the settling house. Days turned into weeks, and Arthur found himself increasingly absorbed in the house's history. He unearthed old journals, letters, and forgotten photographs in dusty trunks and cobweb-laden attics. The Blackwood family, once pillars of Havenwood society, had been consumed by a series of tragedies and timely deaths, inexplicable illnesses, and whispers of madness. But it was the cellar that held the most unsettling secrets. The cellar door, hidden behind a tapestry in the library, was heavy and reinforced with iron bands. It took Arthur hours to pry it open, the hinges screaming in protest. The air that rushed out was cold, damp, and carried the unmistakable stench of mold and something else, something metallic and acrid. Armed with a flickering gas lantern, he descended the stone steps into the inky blackness. The cellar was vast and labyrinthine, a network of interconnected chambers. He found rows of empty wine racks, long-forgotten barrels, and scattered tools covered in rust. But in the farthest corner, behind a crumbling brick wall, he discovered a hidden room. The air in this room was thick with a suffocating dread. In the center stood a single, massive iron cage. It was empty, but the floor around it was stained a dark, reddish-brown. As Arthur examined the cage, a bone-chilling gust of wind extinguished his lantern, plunging him into absolute darkness. A voice, raspy and weak, whispered from the shadows, "Leave this place." He fumbled for his lighter, his heart pounding in his chest. When the flame flickered to life, he saw nothing. He dismissed it as his imagination, the product of exhaustion and the house's oppressive atmosphere. But the whispers continued, growing louder and more insistent each night. He began to see shadows flicker in the corners of his eyes, hear footsteps in the empty corridors, and feel a cold breath on his neck when he was alone. He started having nightmares, vivid and terrifying dreams of the cage, the blood-stained floor, and the figure trapped within, its eyes burning with hatred. Driven by a morbid curiosity and a growing sense of unease, Arthur delved deeper into the Blackwood family history. He discovered a dark secret, a tale of a forbidden love, a betrayal, and a gruesome act of revenge. Elias Blackwood, the patriarch of the family, had imprisoned his unfaithful wife, Isolde, in the cellar, driven mad by jealousy. He had starved her, tortured her, and driven her to the brink of insanity before she finally succumbed to her suffering. Isolde's spirit, consumed by rage and despair, remained trapped within the Blackwood estate, her anguish echoing through the halls. And she was not alone. Elias, consumed by guilt and haunted by his wife's ghost, had taken his own life in the cellar, his spirit forever bound to the scene of his crime. One night, as the storm raged outside, Arthur found himself drawn back to the cellar. He could hear Isolde's whispers, now screams, echoing through the stone walls. He entered the hidden room and stared at the iron cage. As he stared, the temperature plummeted, and a spectral figure materialized before him. It was Isolde, her eyes hollow, her face contorted in a silent scream. Behind her, the shadowy figure of Ilias loomed, his hands stained with spectral blood. Isolde reached out to Arthur, her touch like ice. "You trapped me," she rasped. "Now you will pay." Arthur tried to run, but he was frozen in place, paralyzed by terror. The two specters closed in on him, their faces filled with hatred and despair. He felt a crushing weight on his chest, a suffocating darkness closing in around him. The next morning, the villagers of Havenwood found Arthur Reeves in the cellar of the Blackwood estate, slumped against the iron cage. His eyes were wide with terror, his face a mask of frozen horror. He was dead. The Blackwood estate had claimed another victim. The whispers of Blackwood Cellar continued to echo through the halls, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked within. The house remained silent, waiting for its next unsuspecting victim to unlock its horrifying secrets. And the cage remained empty for now,